Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to tell you about how we deal with pest problems in our greenhouse. There are a couple of pests that we deal with the most often in here. There are some kind of insect pests like aphids, whiteflies, and spider mites. We also deal with mildew, downy mildew, and powdery mildew. And we also have a rabbit that lives out in our garden. So let's start with how we deal with our insect pests. The number one method we use to control insect populations in our greenhouse is by introducing ladybugs. So we have about 3,000 ladybugs that we introduced to our greenhouse a few weeks ago. And ladybugs are carnivores, so they'll eat any of the smaller insects like aphids or whiteflies that are harming our plants. So we can take a look. I found a couple ladybugs here. Hopefully we can see. Okay, so here is one on our tomato plant. There's another one right up here. And I did notice some aphids on these tomatoes a couple weeks ago, and ladybugs are pretty effective at getting rid of them. Oftentimes, these ladybug populations are self-sustaining. They'll reproduce on their own. If you are trying to use them to control a greenhouse that has open panels, or if you're using them in a garden, they do wander off and you might have to buy some more. But they're not very costly. You can get 1,500 ladybugs for somewhere in the range of $15. So these are a great way to mimic the natural ecosystem. These are a natural predator to these pests as a way to deal with any problems in. We avoid using chemical pesticides in here just to kind of, respect our own health and the health of our ecosystem. But if you have a really serious pest problem and you want to go the chemical route, a good option is neem oil. You can buy a neem-based chemical pesticide. It's a naturally occurring plant oil that will kill your pests. All right, next let's talk about how we deal with mildew problems, which we get in here every once in a while. So here I have a tomato leaf. And if we look at this just right, we can see there's this white splotch here. That is powdery mildew that is growing on our tomato plant. This mildew does not get in the plant and harm it. It will just grow on top and block the sunlight. It will inhibit photosynthesis and eventually kill our tomato plant if it spreads too far. So what I did this morning was I examined all of our tomato plants. I removed all the leaves that had this powdery mildew as a way to slow down the spread of this pest. Of course, these mildews thrive in a moist environment, so what we can do in response to this is just reduce our watering. We'll bring our watering down to the bare minimum and let it dry out in here a little bit to slow the spread of. There are chemical fungicides that you can try to control powdery mildew or downy mildew. We're not going to use any of those. But what we can try as a weaker fungicide or fungus killer is vinegar and water. So we will dilute the vinegar in some water. We use half-liter spray bottles, and we'll fill those with 2 or 3 tablespoons of vinegar, and that should also kill off any mold spores. You can also try baking soda. People will put a few tablespoons of baking soda in a gallon of water and spray that on their plants to kill the mildew. When it comes to our rabbits that live outside, we really want to let them have their habitat. So we're not going to try to trap or harm our rabbit at all. We can put up fences. We can plant things that might deter the rabbit, like marigolds, which have a really strong smell that might keep the rabbit away. Finally, we want to remember that diversity is key. If we had, for example, filled up our entire greenhouse with only tomatoes, we'd have a really serious powdery mildew problem. So growing a diverse array of plants is a great way to make sure that any greenhouse or garden system is. And we want to remember that we can prevent pest problems on a fundamental level if we set up good systems in our greenhouse. And by good systems, I mean an environment that has diverse plant life, an environment that has beneficial insects, beneficial fungi, beneficial bacteria, and plenty of fresh air and sunlight so that our plants can be resilient and really thrive.